Consider this a very general introduction of the topic. We still have a lot of videos to watch, a lot of practices to do, and even explanations to go through. So the topic for this week is participial phrases. Let's remember that a phrase is a group of words that don't have a subject or a verb, right? It's a group of words that don't have a subject or verb. Let's take a look at these two sentences I have here. Having finished the exam, my students just wanted to sleep. Arriving to class, I just found that my students have already left. So, let's take a look at the first one. Here we have, having finished the exam, comma, my students just wanted to sleep. The first thing we do is identify the subject. In this case is my students, okay? Now we need to identify the verb, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky, okay? So what is the action that my students are doing? Having finished exam or wanted to sleep? In this case, is wanted to sleep, right? How do I know is wanted to sleep? First, the verb is supposed to be close, very close to the subject, and it should not be separated by a comma, right? Then we have another phrase here, which is having finished the exam. So what the heck is that? That is a participial phrase. So what happens if I eliminate that phrase? Let's take a look at this. My students just wanted to sleep. If I eliminate that phrase, I still have the main idea. I still have the original idea. My students just wanted to sleep. What am I doing here? Having finished the exam. What is that? Extra information that adds to this main idea. My students just wanted to sleep. In this case, having finished the exam, my students just wanted to sleep. Now take a look that here we have with ing, right? That ing there is not a progressive tense. How do I know it's not a progressive tense? It's not next to the verb and it doesn't have the verb to be within it, okay? So what's that? That's a participle. What is a participle? So a participle is when we have a verb that we change it to an adjective. In this case, have, we change it for having. Now, having by itself is not an adjective because it doesn't say much, just having, right? So here I needed to add the phrase that completes and that makes the whole phrase an adjective. What does it mean? It is modifying, all this phrase is modifying this sentence, okay? Having finished the exam, my students just wanted to sleep. So my students just wanted to sleep, then I add extra information. I modify this by adding a participle phrase, which is like an adjective, a giant adjective, that is modifying the original sentence, okay? I know it's tricky, I know it sounds complicated at the beginning, but we'll take a closer look little by little. Okay, now let's take a look at this other sentence. Most of participle phrases look like this. Most of them are at the beginning, then we have a comma, and then we have the sentence. You will also be able to find it in the middle of the sentence, separated by 2 commas, or even at the end, but it's not that common. Mostly it's at the beginning and in the middle. So arriving to the class, I found that my students have already left. Okay, so now if I eliminate this, I found that my students have already left. It's a full sentence with subject, verb, and complement, right? So here we have some extra information, okay? So what is the subject? We have I is the subject, okay? And then we have the verb, I found. Then we have the complement, right? Now, what is arriving to class? So arriving to class, we have the ing here. Which is not a gerund because we don't have the verb to be and we don't have a subject within the same sentence or within the same clause because it's not a clause, it's a phrase. And I need some extra information to complement it. Arriving to class. Arriving to class, I found that my students have already left. So what is this? Extra information modifying this idea, okay? For example, I say, I found that my students have already left, right? It means that the teacher something happened and she saw that the students were not there, right? So if I add this, if I add this, arriving to class, I create a picture on your mind of a student, of a teacher walking to a class and finding out that students were in there, right? So this adds an extra description to your imagination for you to understand the context. This is an adjective, therefore this is an adjective. So it's something that is modifying the idea in your mind for you to understand the situation, which is an adjective. Now we're used to adjectives like big hat, right? So for example, if I say draw a hat, you probably draw different hats. If I say draw a big hat, you guys are gonna draw a big hat, but they might be cowboy hats, birthday hats, magician hats. They're all gonna be different. If I say a big cowboy hat, so you're gonna be drawing a big cowboy hat. That might be different color with slightly different things, but very similar ones. If I say a big red cowboy hat, so you're probably gonna be drawing the similar picture, right? So the same thing we do. So these are words that are modifying your idea of hat. That's an adjective, right? The idea in your mind. So the same thing happens here. What we do is to try to modify this situation by adding more description. Okay, let's take a look at the next videos and we do the practices in class.